Dr. Singhvi, you've spoken. Let me get a word from Kiran Kher. She's been wanting to come into the debate. It's easy for opposition to blame the government for all sorts of deeds. And yes, the government must take some blame. But the fact is there are differences between India and the United States. And India has a border which is got several countries, which are all problem countries all around. And that's a reality which cannot be taken away with. Even if there was somebody else's home minister, those problems would still exist. And therefore, in opposition, there needs to be a more pragmatic approach before hitting the government.
It's not that, but the very fact
I'm coming
that
to you,
we
Mr.
have
Dadar.
them as neighbors and we live in such a sensitive area means we have to be that much more alert, that much stronger when we deal with terrorists. We cannot have their general secretaries going and calling Osama bin Laden Osama G, Kasab being fed, crores being wasted, kept alive, Afzal Guru. I mean, there's no end to the vote bank politicking that goes on within the Congress. I mean, Batla House, Mr. Singhvi talked about. What did Mr. Digvijay Singh do about the Batla House thing? Landed up in Azamgarh and said, oh, this encounter was this, it was that. This constant good cop, bad cop. What did he do today? For God's sake. I mean, you're constantly weakening it. The leaders of the Congress do not want to lose the vote bank, the minority vote bank. So they can never take a hard stand. They talk about fundamentalist forces within the Hindu religion, but we have no problem with that. If those people are guilty, they should be brought to book. But for God's sake, Mr. Rahul Gandhi cannot go and make statements like the biggest threat comes from homegrown Hindu terror. He needs to think also about things like the Indian Mujahideen. I mean, if they are so worried about look at the amount of terrorist attacks that are being perpetrated by the Indian Mujahideen. Look at the amount of illegal immigrants that have been given ration cards in Bombay itself. It's a huge terror threat. I mean, you have security threat to Mumbai. Yep. But no, Mumbai, they don't care about Mumbai. They live in Delhi, most of them.
Okay.
What do they care about Mumbai? They come here after something happens. We don't want them here after something happens. For God's sake, where is the NSG? Why is the NSG not here? The builder, politician, mafia has amazing number of towers and buildings made to accommodate so many people. No place for the NSG to live. Last time they were living on Marine Drive like cattle. I mean, what are they talking about? They don't give them proper bulletproof vests. We have conspiracy theories. Oh, Karkare was killed by this, and you go and release books by Barni. I mean, there's no end to it. It's from start to end. If you start talking about it, it'll take 3 hours to finish. It's shameful. It's shameful for them to come and even try and talk about it.
You know, this debate is once again getting politicized and getting into the realm of, you know, green terror versus saffron terror. I want to put this question, and I want to first go to Anil Dharkar on this question. Is India bleeding because netas have politicized terror in India? Mr. Dharkar, as a concerned citizen, you know, we don't care about what the Congress thinks or the BJP thinks. Common people want terror to be neutralized. And do you think we're suffering because our netas, instead of fighting terror, are politicizing the problem?
You know, I've been sitting here and listening to my fellow panelists, and I'm actually quite disgusted. And that's the word I chose deliberately. At the tenor of the conversation. This is a time of crisis, which is a national crisis. It's not a crisis of the Congress party or any political entity. It's a national crisis. In any other country, if something like this happened, everyone would get together and look at the problem and get together and try and sort it out. Here we are talking of political parties, we are talking of political personalities, we are talking of minority communities, majority communities. I think the only word is disgusting. And I think this is the root of the problem, that we don't actually do anything constructive. I would think at such a situation, all political parties should get together, look at the national interest. What is the national interest? It is to protect this country from terrorist activity. And we know who the terrorists are. We know where they are. Now we have to do something about it.